One thing that we talked about together was how are people going to feel when they take this survey? What type of things are going to come up? And how do we provide resources? How can we help people? Because sometimes when you're answering questions on a survey, negative feelings can come up. And so we didn't want anyone to feel like we're leaving them hanging if you feel like you don't have the right resources or the right support in different areas. So that's kind of the why that we came up with this list of resources in this presentation for you guys. Like we said, so FEM-FL, it's a new initiative. It's exploring how families and spouses and committed partners navigate the NFL experience and beyond in their life. So a lot of the resources that we're going to be talking about, some may apply specifically just to the actual players, while others may be more specific for women or families, moms, in other specific ways. But the most important thing that I want to emphasize is our influence as partners and spouses. And sometimes even if resources are just for the men, a lot of times they're so busy, they're not going to know about what is offered to them because they're trying to stay on the team, they're trying to make plays, so on and so forth. Also, a lot of these resources too, they're going to range from things that you can use while you're in the league, and then resources that are also provided once you're out of the league. So for us, now that my husband is retired, something like the NFL Trust, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is a really important resource for him. So based on the things that we're going to talk about today, some of the overview, we're going to be talking about community resources, family and lifestyle, career and education, physical and mental health and wellness overall, and then experiences with racism and discrimination, and then some info about COVID-19, because we have all, I'm sure, been very much impacted by the whole COVID pandemic. So hopefully these resources are helpful for you. And of course, if there's anything that we missed or that you guys need more of, please reach out, whether that's on the website or through the FEM-FL email address. I'm sure we can provide more, and hopefully this does help. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is community organizations. It's one thing to be a part of a team, and it's another thing to move on to another team. So I understand that sometimes you want to get involved with the teams that you're on, but we know that nothing is really permanent in the NFL. So it's really important to seek out and maybe find other organizations that are more consistent throughout a career in the NFL, rather than just depending on trying to fit in with one particular team or another. So there are a slew of different resources in the community, some specifically for moms, like the 50-yard line mom. There's the NFL thread that connects women within the NFL. Off the Field Players' Wives Association is an amazing organization that I got a chance to join actually last year after participating in their annual fashion show. They do a number of other philanthropic efforts and things like that. There's also the NFLPA Ladies Council. We have the Professional Football Players Mothers Associations, as well as the Women's Resource Initiative. Depending on who the player is or who you are and how you came, to this event, you could be a mom, you could be a sister, a wife, a girlfriend, a fiance, and really there's room for everyone. And there's some kind of organization out there, regardless of what team you're on and who you're friends with, that can make you feel more inclusive and that can be a little bit more relatable. Because sometimes it's hard, to feel supported when you don't know how long your spouse or your partner is going to be on a team. So sometimes it feels hard to connect that way. So I think it's important to know that there are other organizations out there that we can be a part of. Next, we just wanted to highlight some readings by some partners and NFL family members. I think this is actually a really cool slide, because for our friends and family that aren't in the NFL, it's really hard for people to truly grasp what our life is like. And what I mean is, it's hard for them to grasp what the ups really mean to us and what the downs really mean. A lot of times friends and family don't really understand how devastating it can be, when you lose a game or when you get traded to another team, and just the difficulty and a lot that comes with the life that we live while in the NFL. So I think having reading material and just knowing that there's stories out there and people that are sharing their experiences can really help you feel seen, heard, and understood, especially when this is coming from people who have lived a similar life that you have. Okay, marriage and relationships. This one is super important. I want to start with Dr. Rachel because she just spoke. And wow, amazing to hear that she did her dissertation on this. So she is an expert, she is a pro. I would emphasize and suggest everyone to follow up with her in terms of finding out what she found in her research, checking out some of her reading as well as videos that she's done. And then something that I can vouch for myself is the Pro Athletes Outreach. It's a faith-based conference. It usually lasts 3 to 4 days. This is amazing for NFL players and their partners. You don't have to be married. The first time that we attended, actually, I was a girlfriend. We weren't even engaged yet, and it was an amazing experience. It provides a very supportive environment, a place where you can be vulnerable, a place where you get the opportunity to meet in small, intimate groups and really get to know people and share things. They also offer workshops during this conference where you can get help with your finances, where you can get support and help with your in-laws, with your kids, and just juggling work-life balance. So it offers really a comprehensive realm of supports, but with a very spiritual and faith-based root and foundation, which was very important to us. And I know the other attendees that were there. I will say something else about PAO. That's what you may hear people in the league referring to this conference as. It's not free and it is a little costly. But the great thing about PAO is you have an opportunity to be sponsored. We were actually sponsored by another couple who had been in the league longer than us, and it was life-changing. We went back another year and hope to sponsor another couple one day. So if you're unsure about it, maybe not ready to make the investment, maybe on the fence, but want to see what it's like, you could reach out to them and look into finding a sponsor for you and your partner. They're on Instagram at The Increase, and they also have a specific page just for women, which is The Increase Women on Instagram as well. So another great resource where you can connect if you need to ask questions as a spouse or a partner. I think either of those resources would be great. The Family Caregiver Alliance is a resource for caregivers in need of community support, as well as financial assistance. The Better Love Assessment, I don't have any experience with this, but this sounds really fun. It reminds me of something that JT and I did when we were doing premarital counseling. So it sounds like it's an assessment where you will probably answer a lot of questions about yourself and your spouse, and I'm sure it's going to provide you with some kind of report. And it could just be, like a fun activity to do with your husband or your partner and just kind of learn more about yourselves and gain insight into your relationship. And a lot of these things can really help your relationship to grow and to just maybe uncover some things that maybe you weren't talking about, to just kind of better the conversation and find ways to help you improve your relationship. And last but not least, there is the NFLPA, which is sponsored by Cigna, which is the insurance that the NFL uses for the players and former players. They offer actually 8 free marriage counseling sessions a year. I would very, very, very highly recommend this. Even if you don't think you need it, it's free and it's a resource and it might help. Sometimes in relationships, we just want someone to listen other than our spouse, and they want someone to listen other than us. So it kind of gives both people an opportunity to engage in therapy, and it's free and it's temporary. It's only 8 sessions, so it doesn't last forever. So I think that's a great resource as well. Okay, so those interested in furthering their careers or education, there are a number of resources available. The NFL Entrepreneurship and Franchising Workshop, it's available through NFL.net. Once the player logs in, you can get more information. They have LinkedIn Learning, which offers video courses and software. In terms of those who are pursuing higher education, we have access to things like test preparation classes, educational books, and one-on-one tutoring sessions, depending on what you may be interested in pursuing. And I would also say that this is not exhaustive in terms of there's the NFLPA, there's the NFL Trust. There are a number of other resources, but somehow they kind of always seem hidden. They're harder to find than they should be. But there are other ways and other resources out there as well that can help with finding a career. I know the NFL puts on career fair workshops and things like that for players once they're retired. Things like coaching and franchising and a number of things. Just know that those resources are out there. And if you're interested in finding a new career or continuing education, or maybe even going back to school, there are resources within the NFL. Okay, next, so finance and wealth management. So one is Players Community. You and your family can have access to the real estate and wealth management workshops if real estate is something you're interested in, as well as financial workshops as well. And spouses and retirees, spouses of eligible retirees are eligible to receive long-term insurance care. In addition to this, there's also the NFLPA, there's Legends, the Professional Athletes Foundation, and there's a lot of options for financial support that extend to players' partners and children. So there's things like the Gene Upshaw Players Assistance Trust Fund, Player Foundation Care, and the NFLPA. And I will also say, in addition to that, again, the NFL Trust, they have some really, really great resources for former players when it comes to figuring out finances and wealth management. Okay, so next there is health, wellness, and physical health. One thing I love is that they offer free memberships to the YMCA for you and your family, I think for up to 1 year. There's a dental plan. There's also dental included within Cigna's health insurance plan that you can get depending on how many years you've played, how many active seasons and things like that. But Cigna is our go-to if you're in the NFL family. And then specifically for moms, either expecting moms or if you're already pregnant, I haven't been able to use this yet, but I've heard great things about the NFL Healthy Baby Program. They offer reimbursements up to a certain amount of money, depending on when you enroll in the program. You get 24/7 access to nurses and doctors. So just really great support during your pregnancy and motherhood that you otherwise might not have. So it's a really, really great resource to take advantage. And if you didn't know about it and you're expecting, I would give them a call ASAP. Google it if you need the number. I'm sure we can get that for you. You can also look on the Cigna website as well.
Thanks, Morgan. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Kira Dockery. I run the NFL Lifeline, but I'm also a family advisor on the Harvard Football Players Health Study. My dad actually played in the NFL, and I see so many familiar names on here. It is so nice to see everyone kind of gathered in one space. I am so excited about this initiative for all of you guys and for all of us who are kind of working in this space. So I hope some of you have heard of the NFL Lifeline. If you haven't, I'm just going to give you a really quick overview. I appreciate Morgan giving me like a moment to step in here. She's doing such a good job. But I'm learning a lot from you too, Morgan, and I've been doing this for 7 years. So thank you for everything you're putting out there. But you know, the NFL Lifeline was really started in 2012 following, you know, Junior's death by suicide. I'm sure you guys remember that. And that was a very rough year for the former player community. And I think the NFL wanted to do something to try and kind of support transitioning players, former players, their family members. So the NFL Lifeline was kind of born initially as a crisis intervention, suicide prevention program, which is my specialty. I'm a clinical psychologist. But over the years, it has really grown in so many ways into a really wonderful resource. So if you guys could, I always ask, like when I do a presentation, if you could just take a moment and kind of put this phone number in your phone. I don't necessarily mean or think you'll need it right now, but you may at some point along the line. It's a 24/7, totally free, confidential. You can speak with a clinician who is trained by me in kind of the NFL culture and what it's like to be a family member, to be a former player or current player. And we also serve team and league staff. And so you can call anytime and chat, and you can also get access to a lot of the resources that Morgan's talking about here. We obviously have those and can help you get connected to those too if you need it. I also say put it in your phone because you never know if you might be with somebody else or bump up against another spouse, former player, current player, whoever who might be struggling, right? It is a really hard time right now. I don't have to tell you guys that. It is a really hard time for mothers. It is a really hard time for so many who are, so, you know, please, it's there for you guys. It's a resource. And certainly when I was part of launching this program with the NFL, it was so hard to kind of reach out to family members and to spouses and significant others. And I knew right away, just kind of working in this, that, you know, you are the guys who are going to see these problems first, right? We are working with a population where there's a lot of stigma. There's a huge amount of stigma for men to reach out for help. So I, you know, not only want to make sure you guys have this for you as a support, but also have this and the resource to kind of give to your spouses, friends of your spouses, whoever it might be, because I really think that we do such a poor job kind of socializing men to realize when they're struggling, right? And so many times it's a significant other, a spouse, a wife, a mother, who's going to notice those behavior changes, who's going to notice someone struggling. And I wish we didn't have to have this program. I wish, you know, it didn't have to exist, but unfortunately, you know, there are guys and families who are really struggling out there. So if you could help spread the word, we're available and we're going to be here to support. And we definitely want to get, you know, guys and family members is kind of upstream before they're in crisis and get them support. Thank you. And I'm really excited about the initiative. Back to you, Morgan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Dr. Dockery is absolutely right. The NFL Lifeline is an amazing resource. However, I would like to emphasize the importance of preventative care, like she also mentioned, and taking advantage of these 8 free counseling sessions that are offered with Cigna so that maybe you can prevent getting to the stage of crisis and de-escalation. So an important caveat I want to say about these 8 free sessions, they are dependent upon a specific topic or issue that you're having. So that means if you're struggling with addiction, you can get 8 sessions for addiction. And then if you're also struggling with depression, you can get an additional 8 sessions for depression. You can get an additional 8 sessions for anxiety. And the list goes on and on. So just a way of understanding how this works and knowing that 8 does not mean one and done. If there is another issue that arises, some other kind of problem that you're having, please, please, please take advantage of these free sessions. And again, we want to emphasize that this is all confidential. This will not be on any kind of record. No one will know. No one's going to know you and your husband are going through anything like that. It will all be confidential. So you don't have to worry about people being in your business or being ashamed. If you need the help, it's there. And I would really encourage everyone to use it. In addition to free counseling sessions, there are also resources like Silence the Shame, which has partnered with the NFLPA recently with NFL players. Psychology Today is a great resource. It provides a directory. You can go on there and put in your relocation, and it will help you find a therapist in your area. You can also do your due diligence and say, okay, I need help in this area, and find someone who specifically is licensed or is working in that area so that you are, you know, so that you can find a really good match. And just understanding too that just because you get a therapist and maybe you don't mesh with them, you don't vibe with them, that's okay. Like they're not going to take that personal. You shouldn't either. Try again. It's really, really important to have a therapist or a counselor, like that you do have a good relationship. It's actually the #1 predictor of good outcomes in therapy is the relationship that you have with the therapist. So it's not unusual or taboo if you feel like this person isn't right. So don't feel bad. Just reach out again and try to find someone else that can help you. In addition to these resources, there are tons online on Instagram that you can find and that you can look confidentially. Another resource I like, similar to the NFL Lifeline, is Mental Health America. They also offer warm lines, which is like something that you can call and you can talk to someone and they can kind of guide you where you might need to go from there. These are typically free, but another resource. NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, is another great resource. Again, these will all be in a list, either in a PDF. This will be recorded so you can refer back to this. But you will have these resources, so don't worry, we'll make sure you have them. So going on to, talking about therapy, something that Dr. Alicia talked about that is mentioned in the FEM-FL study are experiences with discrimination. So here, what we just kind of want to highlight is that Black people, Indigenous people of color are more likely to experience discrimination in the workplace, in medical settings, and also in everyday life in general. Melanin in Mental Health is a resource as well. This is online through Instagram that people can connect with. And so basically when discrimination occurs, there are resources for culturally competent mental health care providers, advocacy organizations, and legal experts that offer guidance for fighting workplace discrimination. So something that I wanted to add, just because of my research and my dissertation, is just that people understand that there is a breadth, there is so much research out there, and it is proving, it is saying that Black people in particular are going to be less likely to seek out mental health treatments, but we are at an increased risk for having more severe depression and negative mental health impacts compared to other races. And impacts of discrimination, particularly racial discrimination, can negatively impact our family systems, our relationships, our physical health, our mental health, and just overall functioning. So it's really important, even if it's something you feel like that you don't experience in one setting, just thinking back over your life, especially as people of color, and just understanding that whether we're aware of it or not, it does have a negative impact. And I wanted to provide a couple ways of, how we can cope with discrimination, whether that's in our education institution, at our work, in our neighborhood, online, wherever. So my first piece would be to find a culturally competent therapist. And what that means is just someone who makes the effort, because cultural competence is an ongoing effort. It's not a grade you can get and you become culturally competent, but rather like an ongoing learning process and experience to work with those that are different from you. And below I said, see the provided PDF, because hopefully we're providing more resources that will help you guys as well. And then finding healthy ways to cope with stress from discrimination. So that can be things like reading, engaging in fitness, prayer, if that's something you like, or attending church, journaling, attending therapy, or getting a counselor. Some people like to sing, some people like to cook, talking to a trusted family member or friend. Those are all healthy ways to cope. But we all, I'm sure myself included, we all have ways to cope that feel good, that aren't necessarily always healthy. So I want to caution against some of those. Sleeping or taking a nap is great, but you don't want to use sleep as a way to like escape your stress and your problems, because then when you wake up, one, you're probably going to be so tired, and two, like your problems are still there. So it becomes like this awful cycle we get ourselves into. We're like, oh, I'm just going to sleep it off, I want to go to bed. And it temporarily might help, but it's not a long-term fix. So prioritizing a healthy lifestyle is really important. So that means like making sure you're getting enough sleep, but again, not too much sleep and not too little. Neither of those are healthy. If you can, trying to prioritize eating fresh foods, less processed stuff. I know fast food can be really good sometimes, but research shows that it doesn't actually make us feel good. And what goes into our body oftentimes has an impact on our mental health as well. So with that being something that we can control, I highly recommend doing our best to focus on fresh food. Exercise, whatever is comfortable for you. That's also been proven to help uplift your mood and make you feel better. And then I would say just, again, being aware of alcohol use. We all love a glass of wine or two, or, however many you have, I get it. But be careful, because alcohol tends to exacerbate negative feelings and not make us feel better. So just be aware, be cognizant that, okay, I'm having my glass of wine to wind down Wednesday or whatever, Thirsty Thursday today. But just keep in mind that alcohol can have negative impacts as well and can lead to dangerous side effects. Okay, lastly, just a brief overview about the NFL Trust, which is powered by the NFLPA. They pride themselves on supporting NFL players as they live their purpose beyond football. So this is actually a membership-based organization for former players of the NFL. And they, on their website, they talk about the pillars of the trust. So the things that they kind of base their foundation on, which is personal and business development, health and wellness resources, and community and connection opportunities. So really everything that we just previously talked about in the slides before, the NFL Trust has a variety and a very comprehensive list of resources as well that really complement everything we talked about. And again, this is specifically for players once they are done and they have retired from the league. And lastly, some COVID-19 resources. We know this has affected the health, a lot of financial security, and especially our emotional well-being during the last year or so. So you can find information here from NAMI in terms of mental health support. And then the SBA, they offer small business grants and loans, and just good advice and resources of how to protect yourself, information about vaccines and who should get them and when, and things like that, all things related to COVID. And additional, go back one more, okay. Additional support. So unfortunately, there are those that are surviving spouses, widows of NFL players, and there are foundations such as the Liz Logan and Hope for Widows Foundation, which is extremely important because those women and those families absolutely need support and resources as well. And then there's also the Player Care Foundation, which is with the NFL Legends community, and it offers grants for basic living expenses, medical treatment, quality of life expenses, and as well, like I said, for surviving spouses and children of deceased players. Okay, and as you know, depending on how long you've been in the NFL, you're gonna have to move once, if not twice or 8 times, depending on the career you're in. And that can be really overwhelming and kind of scary, especially if you're by yourself. So at the end here, we just wanted to provide a couple books and some resources to help you if you do have to relocate and you're by yourself, and just knowing that we've all, most of us, 99% of us have been there, and we understand like how scary it is. If you have someone, if you have a resource in the league already, I would reach out to people that you trust and that you have a good relationship with to just get advice about how to move, when to do it, and things like that in terms of the logistics of it all, and especially in terms of like your utilities as well, moving things around. So hopefully these can be a resource and just kind of highlight and let you guys know that we feel you, we understand, we know how difficult things can be, even in the midst of like all the blessings that the NFL brings. It can also bring challenges and adversity as well. So thank you guys. That concludes our presentation of resources. Again, we'll have an exhaustive list for all of you, probably on the FEM-FL website, as well as a link that will be provided within this recording. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you learned something that you didn't already know and find a support that can help you and your family moving forward. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to present on these resources, because I find it to be so important. And a lot of times we don't take advantage of what's out there for us. So hopefully this encouraged someone to ask for help who needs it, or to just know that we're all alike and we all need help in different areas, and not to be ashamed or afraid to reach out. Thank you guys.